it's great that Sayara has come and disrupted the box office like that. Especially when I started researching for this film, I realized that
First feature film is a momentous occasion, much to celebrate. And from
thank
what
you.
I see of your career graph, it seems to have been an incremental thing, from production design to doing a short to doing a docu-series. Is that how you had planned it, to go step by step, to take one step at a time?
No, not that. It sounds like cliche answer, but not planned anything. I studied architecture, and I thought I would have continued being in pursuing a career in architecture. But somewhere in the internship only I realized यार मुझे ये ऑफिस में बैठ के डेस्क जॉब 9 to 5, बट फिर ये पता नहीं था फिर 24 घंटे काम करने पड़ेंगे, 9 to 5 जॉब नहीं चाहिए था. सो इट ऑफ कोर्स एक्सपोजर था थोड़ा सा फिल्म इंडस्ट्री के को पापा की वजह से, बट आई हैड नॉट प्लान्ड दैट आई वांट टू गो एंड वर्क इन द फिल्म्स पर से. बट in the fourth year of architecture, there was this production designer, Sharmishta Roy. She had come to our college for a seminar, and she said how creating spaces in architecture is closely associated with creating spaces in films, and that really fascinated me. तो मैंने ग्रेजुएशन के बाद सोचा ट्राई करती हूँ, अगर it sounds like a different world. I know that it's more familiar than for people who have no connection to it at all. So I thought कि एक दो साल try करती हूँ. If I like working here, then that is it. It's been, I think, 18 years now.
In the
And
profession.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And jumping to, I think writing and direction happened somewhere in the middle, 6, 7 years. I was doing a lot of advertising, which is like its own world, and it can be very, monotonous and banal. Like you start questioning your life, कि हम क्या कर रहे हैं, Uh, that made me think that do I, and that was the time when I'd hardly done one or two films as an independent production designer, and I started just writing. And then I took a 6 months break. I went to do a workshop in Europe, and I was like, फिर लिखने में बहुत मजा आने लगा. Like it was not, I wasn't writing for anyone. I was just at that time writing for myself. But I got so obsessed with it that even if I, during Sacred Games, I remember I was shooting in South Africa for season 2, and if you would have a 9 o'clock shift, I would get up at 5 in the morning and I would write my script for 2 hours and then go on shoot for the shoot. Then go on second game shoot. So this, I started noticing a pattern that I like doing this. I like writing, and that's why I have some 6 scripts, by the way. None of it is made, but of course the opportunity came for this film पहले, तो ये बन गई. But hopefully बाकी भी बनेगी. But I was just writing over the years. Over last 12, 13 years, I have just written a lot of stuff. Some of it very personal and probably will never get made or anything, but I just wanted to put it down on paper.
Your film, technically speaking, is a love story.
Hmm.
And it comes at a time when suddenly love seems to be working its charm at the box office. Now, does that elate you, make things easier for you, or does it put you under pressure that you also have to deliver, in terms of pure success,
If
so
we
to
are just
speak?
talking about immediate effects, Sayara, then I don't know. We have been so busy because Sayara has just happened like 10 days ago. And we have in the last 10, 12 days of, submitting your film copy, you are literally working 20 hours a day. So there is no time to process, oh, the genre might help like one film working. But I definitely think that any film, and of course something closer to the genre, is helpful for us also to perform better at the box office. It's not a competition like that. Even if the films are releasing on same day, it's not a competition. Because I think कुछ 15-16 साल पहले मतलब उसके पहले ऐसा होता था. मतलब somewhere media started pitching films against each other. It's not a healthy trend that has happened. But पहले होता था कि दो तीन फिल्म साथ में रिलीज हो रही है, सब चल रही है. So there
Hmm.
was a culture of going to theater which was more important than अच्छा मेरी फिल्म 100 करोड़ करेगी या उसकी. सबकी करनी चाहिए यार, सब मेहनत से फिल्म बना रहे हैं, अच्छी बना रहे हैं. तो it's great that Sayara has come and disrupted the box office like that. I think somewhere post COVID, थोड़ा सा सिनेमा वॉचिंग कल्चर एंड ऑफ कोर्स बिकॉज ऑफ ओटीटी पॉपुलैरिटी लोगों ने थिएटर जाना बंद कर दिया है, तो ये सबके लिए अच्छा है, इंडस्ट्री के लिए अच्छा है, हमारे लिए भी अच्छा है. लाइक इफ आई हैव हैड अ मिनट टू थिंक अबाउट इट, I think I have, me and my team have discussed that this is good for us. This is good for the film coming after us. It's not a thing here, yaar, will our film work as much? It doesn't need to work as much. Identity that way.
But purely if I look at the whole idea of romance or love, you can't box it into a certain kind of a monolith. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
love can be, love is a many splendored thing, as oft repeated kind of phrase that we use. It could be, these fairy tales with pastel shades. It could be, this whole thing of simpering and sighing, and it could be to do with angst and tears. But somewhere for me, love is also a very disruptive force. It's a form of resistance against the so-called status quo. It can make you uncomfortable rather than the comfort one associates with the feeling. Uh, what would your definition of love be, and how much of that kind of seeps into your first feature film?
Um, I think I've grown up watching films mostly centered around, like at the time we were growing, which is 90s India. That was the time when love stories started making, like love stories are the more popular form of genre, right? And Bollywood is associated with that love story genre. In fact, I know that some of the people have also been attacking us online saying ki Periram Perumal mein there wasn't a love story, and now these guys have put it and they are going to ruin the original story. But what is wrong in taking a love story route? You're talking about love. You're not talking about, and you can talk about different biases and discrimination in society while taking this route. The thing is, I have grown up watching Mani Ratnam films, and identity and love was never separated in his film. It had a very strong layer. If we knew where the girl came from, where the boy came from, and we never, and that is how the story was built, and that was the center conflict in most of his films. And Bombay being the most influential film of my childhood, it gave me a perspective about life. It also helped me understand my identity, my roots, my culture. That is what cinema is supposed to do. I mean, I would want films to go in that direction. If in the last decade or two we've gone away from that, I think we need to come get it back to that. And I'm not saying that every film should deal with intercaste and interfaith issues, at the forefront of it. But the moment you start erasing the identity around the characters to make it more palatable, and I think somewhere we lose connection with a large population of the country. Like, people don't find it relatable. There can be anomalies. I'm sure there are very, very popular films that are not dealing with identity issues while taking the path, in storytelling of a love story. But I think that is something I want to take route from. Like, that's the route I want to take because I've grown up seeing that how in our society where the people come from different faiths. I mean, that's what the country is about, right? There are so many like people from different faiths and culture, and मतलब यहाँ पे तो सब कास्ट में डिवीजन हो जाता है, लोग एक दूसरे को. And what we have shown in our film that people don't get married within different subcaste even if they actually belong to the same group. And that is such a fascinating thing for me as a filmmaker कि especially when I started researching for this film, I realized that I don't know the society I live in. And the more I was trying to understand it and the more deeper I was going into it, and I was like, everything actually works around the identity, whether it's caste identity, religion identity, gender identity. And we are just not tackling this in our films. And through love story is not a banal genre where acha do log aaye gana gaye and then some matlab the common route is amir gharib, it's more safe, like to deal with class. But there can be several layers around it. And I have grown up seeing those films, and I want those to reflect in the films that I make. Those are the things that I think about as a person, as a filmmaker, and that is why it's reflective in whatever I have made till now, and hopefully from here on as well.
But interestingly, you kind of partly anticipated my question to come. Bollywood, this whole erasure of identity. I mean, the Hindi cinema is often accused of that, whereas Tamil cinema, has often been spoken of being rooted in that reality. Now, you have chosen a film which has been very acclaimed, which has been a very beloved film, and you would be judged against it. Let's be very frank about it.
I will be,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, until now, your works have been original, whether it is Bebak or whether it was Homecoming in Love Storia. What made you opt for something like Pariyerum Perumal?
Actually, Dharma production had approached. I mean, Somain had approached me for a script that I had written. Actually, that was also a book adaptation, and that's a very popular book. I hope we get to make that film someday. They liked the script, but things eventually didn't work out. This was around 3.5 years ago, and Somain told me that they have another film, and they it's a really good film, and they want to remake it. And then he was looking for someone who could tackle the subject delicately. Of course, with they had got a little bit of a flack for the Dhadak that they had made earlier, which was a remake of Sairat. So they were trying to. In fact, I remember my first meeting with Karan, and he had said that this should be a Hindi film that should, unapologetically talk about the identity issues. So that also came from the producers, and because I wanted to know what I'm getting into. When I watched the film, there was something about the film that really hit me, and I thought that it is something I can take this story and I can adapt it. So people basically, I mean, the general idea is कि ये तो film है उसकी copy कर रहे हैं. So they think that people take and वो पूरा script छाप करके frame wise frame copy कर रहे हैं, या फिर जो चाहे वो unofficial remake हो या official remake हो, लोग करते भी है वैसा. It's a right way of thinking कि अच्छा ये तो हमारी film को अब ruin कर रहे हैं. But I feel like I understand the love people have, because films, we get so emotional about films and books and people that we follow, that अगर किसी ने कुछ someone tries to come and interfere, that emotion, they'll be like, "Arey, they are going to ruin a film." But that's not the case. If it's a country with where there is a lot of reach of Hindi language, if something is made in a language, it's only going to take that story forward. Yes, there is an emotion, someone can come and take whatever, they're not going to disrupt, they're not going to spoil the original film. Give them a chance to make an adaptation. You don't like it, it's fine. Even if you want to go online and hate on that film, hate on the director, hate on the production house, it's fine. आपको जो आपकी लाइफ में सही लग रहा है आप करो. But to tell someone कि अरे ये तो आने के पहले ही पूरा उसको कर दिया कि यार ये तो खराब ही है. Give a chance ना. Watch the film. You don't like it, you go and put an article and Reddit threads and whatever you do. That's fine, because I don't think can any storyteller artist can put themselves out in the public eye and say, oh, worship me. No, there are going to be people who are going to be upset by you. There are going to be people who are going to disagree with your politics, with your gaze, and they have the right to talk about it. बट एटलीस्ट फिल्म देख लो. अभी कुछ लोगों ने ट्रेलर ही देख करके इतना अटैक कर दिया, बट देयर लॉट ऑफ लव. Actually, I have to say that before the trailer came out, at least from my team, I get to know that people were very, very skeptical, but there's a lot of support after the trailer has come out. So, going back to the question you asked, it was important to take this film. When I watched it, I thought that something moved in me, and I could take this story and set and put in another setting. And this story needs to go out to a wider audience. Like, it needs to reach out to people. There is the मतलब हमारा intention तो बहुत honest है उसके हिसाब से. अभी now people who watch the film, there are going to be people who see the film and they're like, "Arey, this is not a patch on Pereram Perumal," which is fine. But there are going to be people who have not seen the original film, and they're going to watch it and it hits them, and probably it's worth making the film because of that.
So, having seen the original, I think some of the points which kind of reached out to me, and I thought were the strengths of the film, were, there's that certain rootedness to the context, and a certain urgency and immediacy, which I think is is fueling this kind of fear that,
Hmm.
in the hands of Hindi cinema, known for a certain kind of decontextualized storytelling, that urgency and immediacy might be lost. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know whether I'm right in thinking along those lines or not.
No, no, absolutely. And I agree with their, like whoever is concerned about कि the film was very raw and rooted and now Hindi film चार गाने डाल दिए हैं तो अभी what is left of it, you know? And like the original story didn't take a very love approach to it. There was the girl who had more feelings for the boy and the boy was struggling with his identity. Somewhere that's the path even our film takes, but uh, the original film took a root of caste, and we are talking about caste and gender both. And actually, let me answer your question first about rootedness of it. So the thing is, what you think of how certain Tamil cinema or Malayalam cinema is, it has that bigger impact. They try to keep the stories more real, and you come from a place where you think Hindi films are not doing that. It's a correct bias to have, but it's also something that before a director's film is out, before a film is out, you're already saying Hindi film में तो ये करती ही नहीं है तो इसको भी chance नहीं देते हैं. That is my problem. It's basically confirmation bias. So even if you think that it's not as rooted as the earlier film, does the story, does the film, does the character, the emotion work in where it is set, in how it is made? You have to give a chance to the film for whether it's working that way or not. Maybe it's not. जैसे हमने हमारी फिल्म में setting change किया है, it's more in a urban space, because during research I that was one of the realization that people have this thought कि caste सिर्फ rural areas में ज़्यादा it's practiced more than urban areas, and then we realize it's everywhere. It's not about, it's just more accepted in rural areas to even from the on the side of like the backward caste people would be like नहीं हमें घर में उनके जाकर के नीचे बैठना है. Maybe those status quos are challenged in urban space, but it is still rampantly practiced, which is what the approach, which is a central theme of our film, that you can migrate from smaller areas and come to bigger cities, and yet your identity will not leave you. For that, the film is shot in a certain space, and if people feel अरे ये तो इन्होंने rootedness खत्म कर दिया, rootedness doesn't mean it's in a rural setup. Rootedness means if the story is set in Lucknow, the film has to look like it is set in Lucknow. If the story is set in Goregaon, it should look like the story is in Goregaon. That is how the film looks rooted, right? So I think ये एक perception है कि तमिल सिनेमा, मलयालम सिनेमा ये सब बहुत अच्छा है और हिंदी फिल्में तो बकवास ही होती हैं. And I don't agree with that bias. I think yes, there are a lot of Bollywood films that seems like they are erasing identity and other important issues that should be told on bigger screens. But there are also films that is films in the mainstream stage that is challenging gender status quo, and that is talking about religion and caste in a way where there are a lot of restrictions, and we know about it. Maybe because caste is also a very dominant issue in Tamil Nadu, it's easier. There are more filmmakers there that come from the community. It's slightly more, I'm not saying easy, but it is in the mainstream, you see a lot of stories around caste, while you will not see that here. Because there are a lot of filmmakers there who've come and who've built that culture that we are here and you cannot stop us from telling our stories. That need to happen in Bollywood, I agree. Understanding कि तमिल सिनेमा बहुत अच्छा है और हिंदी फिल्में अच्छी नहीं है तो इनको चांस भी मत दो. That I feel is it's coming from a certain bias, and I don't want to give my attention to that, I would say.
No, no, I'm going to come to the gender question because it's something which kind of struck me and kind of I wanted to question you because it's something you've been engaging with in a way. But let me just kind of look at the caste question here. Again, the skepticism that I'm talking of also perhaps stems from the fact that the original has a lived experience to it. What we often refer to as telling our own stories, so they assume to come with a certain urgency. And in Hindi cinema, if you look at the caste question, earlier times, there was somebody privileged like Bimal Roy making a Sujata, you know. And that's how I think somewhere the dilution notion kind of comes to play. Now, I'm just going to ask you, kind of maybe it may sound provoking to you, but would you be able to do justice to a reality that is not yours? And let me expand on it a bit. When you are making a film, it's a team effort. Beyond you, were there people with you who could make you locate the caste question in a more significant way? I wanted to know a bit more about that.
So this is actually a this is a larger issue and a larger conversation. While growing up, I have really worshipped filmmakers like Saeed Mirza and Shyam Benegal, where Shyam Benegal at least have told stories about minorities while being from the other side. And if you watch his films even now, and it doesn't feel like, oh, just because he didn't have the lived in experience, he doesn't have that inner voice. How to find that inner voice, how to find that lived in experience is by empathy first, but by being very sure of yourself as a storyteller, what you want to say. And then you have to navigate. If a person, I 100% agree that a Dalit filmmaker is positioned, who is sensitive, who has has a lived in experience of the story they want to say, is better positioned to tell the story than a non-Dalit filmmaker. I 100% agree to that. Will a filmmaker, is Mari done, he has brought in that inner voice when he's told Periram Perumal. And there is no way anyone can take away from that ki, nahi yaar, isse better to, that's not how it works. And I completely believe in that. But can you navigate the distance from lived in experience, non lived in experience to lived in experience? Yes, you can, with research, sensitivity, empathy, and you can find, because see, ultimately, I'm not here to solve the caste discrimination issue in the country. You cannot start on that, that kind of ki acha mujhe ab ye pura badalna hai samaj. You take it from a more personal space. That I'm telling the story of this boy Nilesh. He comes from this community, Dalit community, and how do I tell the story? How do I make myself the best person in this situation to tell the story? I think that's the only thing I can do. And I won't even bring in my identity, that because I am also a minority, I don't think it's the same issue what a Dalit person faces or what a Muslim from. Also, Muslims are not a monolith. There are, 80% of Muslims also come from backward caste. So, because our country is so vast with so many different intersection, इट्स सो डिफिकल्ट टू से, बिकॉज मैं मुस्लिम हूँ, मुझे पता है कि दलित स्टोरी कैसे बोलनी है, ये तो बहुत ही गलत होगा ये बोलना. बट कैन आई स्टिल नेविगेट दैट डिस्टेंस एंड make it seem like I know what I'm saying? If I'm not able to do that, then I fail as a filmmaker. But maybe if I am able to at least reach 70-80% of that distance, ki agar a Dalit filmmaker would have said this, it would have been better film. Yes, but even without that, am I able to navigate the space? Yes. I feel like I have done justice to Nilesh's story. How people perceive it, of course, it's a very individual, it's going to be a very individual reaction, like how people have reacted to the trailer as well. But to say that a Muslim person cannot tell a Dalit story blanket and should not tell it, I don't agree with that at all. Because yes, Saeed Mirza has told Muslim stories better, but so has Sham Benegal. And I worship both of them as filmmakers and storytellers, and they have managed, despite the identity, they have somehow managed to get the issue in place while navigating that particular story. Zubeda mein feel ho raha tha, Zubeda ka pain is enough for me to know that Sham Benegal did a decent job with that film. That is needed. If we just start striking off people that he's from Savarna caste, he cannot tell a Dalit story. Maybe not the best person, but they can have the sensitivity still to tell the story. Maybe they have seen the way they present the characters, the way they see the characters. It can still be like, they are able to tell that story. I don't believe someone has to 100% come from that caste, religion, gotra, region, language to be able to tell that story.
And I
So,
think it's also an evolution of sorts. I mean, when I took the name of Bimal Roy and talked about Sujata, I mean, this was not by any stretch to demean him, because maybe at that time that
absolutely.
intervention was needed by someone who came from a privileged background, to forge
Yeah.
the way ahead. So those bits are there, but tell me about, your team of people. Apart from your research, were there individuals who kind of helped you navigate it?
I mean, there
Uh,
have been decisions to hire people who are from the community, and I felt like that was needed because when people are saying ki these are a bunch of Savarna people coming and telling our stories, that's not correct because a film is not made by the writer and director. A film is made by a bunch of crew who come together, like visually how you see the world, how the costumes are tackled, how the makeup is done, how the film is shot. This all comes together as lensing. I would say it's unfortunate that director gets to take the maximum credit for it, but it's always a teamwork. And as long as I had people in the team who could bring in that add to the gaze, which feels more internal, which feels more you know not like basically people from the upper caste have come and made our film. They gave us a worldview, the way a film is shot, the way a film is edited, how we've tackled how I mean, I know you're going to come to the larger question, but also the makeup of the actors. This is all done by a bunch of people, and there are people from the community in our team. And it was a little upsetting when people started writing that, these are outsiders who don't know the story that they're saying. But that's not how you can have that story about maybe, about another film where a bunch of upper caste people have come and made a story and it maybe it's seen in the film also, but that's not the case for our film. I can only defend the film that we've made.
which kind of brings me to what you had anticipated, Siddhant's look, the
Hmm.
the the brown facing, how do you respond to that? I mean, now that it is being debated.
Well, it's casting is a especially when you're telling stories of marginalized communities, casting it's in conversation for at least the last few years. How do you go about casting for films like that? Do you take people who are within, a Dalit person playing a Dalit person? Now, I'm a first-time filmmaker, Namrata. There is only certain responsibility I can take. I'm not responsible for how Bollywood works. I'm not responsible for the entire system that is built. And but the first criticism that we faced during announcement was a Brahman is playing a Dalit boy, like a Chaturvedi is playing from Dalit community. So is that a valid criticism? Now, if I have to approve that, what does an actor do? There are two layers to it. One is what is an actor's job? It is literally to embody another person. So, can a Brahman person embody a Dalit person's pain? Yes, they can, because if they know their craft, they will be able to do that. Is a Dalit person better placed to do that? Yes, also yes to that. But we are in a society where will you question? That we've had 3 decades of these 3 to 4 Muslim superstars who are playing these Hindu characters. Does it also then happen that they should only be playing Muslim characters? Does the popular actors, Balraj Sahani playing Muslim businessman in Garam Hawa, do we take that away from him? Or say Shashi Kapoor played this character in Junoon, which was really hard. He played a Muslim character. Should we start saying that all of that didn't make sense because they were Hindu characters playing Muslims? And then what about Shah Rukh Khan and Amir Khan and Salman Khan and Saif? Because our industry is built around these 4 or 5 legends in last, at least for 3 decades. So where do we start? Is that a valid conversation? I'm not saying I agree to it. I'm just saying these are the questions, and I'm also in the middle of questioning all of this. And in that, if you're saying a Brahman character cannot play a Dalit character, then should we just discard Masan as well, or any like it's you can take or like say this one Nutan playing Sujata, right? Like if we take all the Dalit stories, Shabana Azmi playing a Dalit woman, so we start saying that because we already believe that Shabana Azmi is a great actor. Should we allow her to play a Dalit woman? Will she do full justice to it? Or will there has to be a Dalit actor coming and playing that character? These are conversations. We have just started having this conversation, but I believe that if we only take people from that particular religion, that particular caste, exactly region, language, where will we end? The process of filmmaking is quite difficult. Then simplifying it, ki a Dalit ladka hai, only a Dalit actor can play that role. I think Muslim stories would not exist if we had this rule that only Muslim actors will be playing Muslim characters. But it comes, I understand the argument because it comes from a place of representation, which is so important that, so what is the way ahead? What is, how do we take affirmative actions to ensure there are people, Dalit filmmakers and writers and people in the team and actors in the industry? Because definitely kami to hai. And I have felt that while hiring crew, I have felt that while building a team, there aren't enough people from the community, not even Muslims. Muslims also there. I would say it's there in the more of what we call the C crew. Workers are there. But if you see, there's not enough writers and filmmakers who can come and voice out their story. But this is what already exists. There are different ways to make that change rather than running down a film saying, "Arey, ye to Brahman play kar raha hai." So I already am rejecting that film because they have cast a Chaturvedi to play a Dalit boy. So this is a larger conversation. And then we narrated to him. He immediately loved the film, and within like 4 hours, he said yes, and he was part of the project. So what actor gets, of course, the production house also needed that kind of it's a mid-budget project. So yes, you can cast, you can get completely fresh faces. It has worked for Serat, so you can't say that it has never happened that you take fresh face and they make a big noise at the box office. But Serat is an anomaly in that case. It rarely happens that completely newcomers make it work at the box office. And if you're putting a certain amount of money, I think it's fair that the studio and producers think that we should have at least thoda familiar face ho, so they can bring in, like, Siddhant has that connect with younger people, and that would bring in. That was the thought of getting him on the project. Of course, he is fantastic. He has fantastic range as an actor. But ek bar, I got to know, okay, this is the actor we have, and now we have to fit him in our world. डू पीपल थिंक दैट हम यहाँ से शुरू कर रहे हैं कि अच्छा चलो अभी दलित कैरेक्टर तो इसको ब्राउन फेस कर देंगे क्योंकि इसको गरीब दिखाना है, इसको दिखाना है कि ये दलित कम्युनिटी से है, तो इसको काला कर देंगे. फिल्में ऐसे नहीं बनती हैं. इट्स नॉट एज सिंप्लीफाइड एंड नो वन none of us are here, and it's still my first film as a filmmaker, as a fiction that I've made. But I don't think any filmmaker, like I don't think Zoya Akhtar ने भी गली बॉय के टाइम पे बोला अच्छा ये इसको गरीब दिखा रहे हैं, ये स्लम्स में रहता है, धरावी में रहता है, इसको काला कर दो. I don't think filmmakers navigate world building with such simplification and biased understanding of the world. You're building a world. He has a family, he has friends. There is a story where he meets a girl and the girl instantly likes him. So, say the other way around, we would have cast him and not tanned him. I won't say brown face, it's tanning. I'll tell you the difference between the two also. Our film is a high contrast film. So if people see how Tripti's skin is, they'll understand that he's only a few shades tanned than her. But people are saying, "नहीं, इसको black face कर दिया, brown face कर दिया." But film का contrast है. It's the look of the film also. She's also a very fair skinned person who's looking 4 shades darker than her skin. That is the look of the film. People don't want to get into that because attack mode पे है कि अरे ऐसे क्यों दिखाया. Which I still understand. It comes from the place of being hurt कि अच्छा because you have a bias of Dalit people being brown. This is what you are projecting. But this is again confirmation bias. You watch the film, if you still think that something is wrong and this shouldn't have been done, I'll take your point. But we have a girl in the film who falls for him first. If we leave him, this fair skinned boy looking completely different from the other characters that we have cast, the way his mother is cast, or the way his father, लोग ये build करते हैं on paper कि ये casting होगी, ये उसके parents होंगे, ये उसका world होगा, ये दोस्त होंगे. बट अगर हमने नहीं, अगर टैन भी नहीं किया होता तो लोग बोलते ये तो धर्माफिकेशन है. तुम गोरे चिट्टे लड़के को ला करके तुमने खड़ा कर दिया, बोला कि ये दलित पर्सन है, एंड दैट इज व्हाई द गर्ल इज फॉलोइंग फॉर हिम. लाइक if we have to challenge that brown people are beautiful and black people are beautiful, and there is this girl from upper caste who is this, from the surface of it, pretty looking, and she's falling for the boy, and I'm going to be like, okay, but he is dark skinned boy and he looks beautiful like that, and she likes it. That's also a thought. She should be falling for a boy who's brown skinned and not because of his skin color. Like, generally, the colorism that is followed, that is the status को in a society कि गोरे लोग सुंदर हैं और brown और darker लोग मतलब सुंदर नहीं है. That is the clear binary bias that exists. We don't believe in that. We have not made the film with that thought कि गरीब है तो काला कर दिया. There was a certain thought which was put, and it came from research. It came from, being empathetical. It's not, we are not coming from a place where we just take a, it's not simplified like that, that मैंने paper पे decide किया कि अच्छा, I'm telling a Dalit story, let's brown face because we now have a fair skinned actor, let's make him brown face. Filmmaking is not that kind of process. There are people from the community in the room when we were deciding the look of the film, the look of the character. It's all part of the broader character design. It doesn't come from a place of bias. It comes from a place of telling your story in the pitch that you want to present it. If you see right now on my Instagram, the colorist team that Red Chilies has done are they have colored the film, the post production team. They have put up stills of the film. If you see Vidhi and Nilesh in the same frame, you'll realize there is not much of a difference between the skin. And if it is, are they standing in light? Are they standing in shadow? Unfortunately, the trailer opened with a shot where he is inside a cave. There is no light on him. And they're like, "Arey, dekho, isko kala kar diya." But what is his skin throughout the film? Are you seeing that in detailing? नहीं, आपको अपना bias confirm करना तो आपने वो किया. But I accept it. If it seems like on the surface, if it seems like we did something wrong, and Bollywood का ये image है कि generally गरीब लोगों को दिखाने के लिए, कहाँ पे हमने 50, 60, 70s में सब क्लास डिवाइड पे फिल्म बनाई है, कहाँ पे इतना ब्लैक किया है या ब्राउन फेस किया है. कुछ फिल्में अगर उन्होंने इंसेंसिटिवली की है तो आप उनके बारे में बात करो. बट वो ऐसा है ना कि भेड़ चाल की, एक को गाली दे रहे सबको गाली दो. आप फिल्म पहले देख लो, आपको नहीं पसंद आई, यू क्रिटिसाइज इट, यू राइट आर्टिकल्स, एंड इट्स कंप्लीटली फेयर. People have a right to judge the film. That is what it means to be in the media, right? But at least give us a chance. Muslims also practice caste. मैंने मेरे घर पे देखा लोगों को जमीन पे बैठ के खाते हुए. I come from Bihar, and that is where, as a child, I had seen all of this happening. And then I am film. You cannot show women as heroes. That is not a feminist film. Everything is about the boy going through a journey and coming to terms with his identity. It's